Hello, Suzanne. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, and today is a special episode. You want to tell us what's today and why is it important?
Today's September 11th, and it'll always stand out like Good Friday as a sad, tragic day because of what happened on this day in 2001.
Do you remember how you found out, or where were you when the attacks happened?
I was at home watching TV. Now, I was watching some cable channels that didn't have any news on it, but then around just before noon, I was watching a public television channel, and it said, "Stay tuned to the noon news for complete coverage." And that's how I found out about it.
So do you remember what your reaction was at the time?
Well, I was really amazed. Why would people want to destroy the World Trade Center well, they didn't destroy the Pentagon, they just damaged it. But when it first sank in the story, I thought who could have done this? I thought it was an inside job because in 1995 there was the Oklahoma City bombing, and that was an inside job.
Right, that was Timothy McVeigh, whatever his name was.
Well, right now his name is important. But the fact is he was American. The Oklahoma City bombing can be called an inside job because it was done by disenchanted Americans. You can't say that about 9/11 because it was done by foreigners.
So when did you find out the details, and how did that make you feel? Do you remember that?
I was very sad. Well, another reason I thought it was an inside job was that, I mentioned the Oklahoma City bombing. Now Timothy McVeigh, the culprit, was executed for it a few months earlier in the year 2001.
Okay, and then when you found out who did it, what did you think?
Well, I guess I kind of figured they were Middle Easterners. It's somehow a lot of Middle Easterners have always had a contempt for this country.
Why do you think that is?
Because the Holy Land has always been besieged by foreigners, many of them non-Christians, ever since, even in times before Christ, the Holy Land was besieged by foreigners in the name of taking over the country and making it part of some ancient empire.
So you feel that grudge goes way back?
Yes.
Do you have a solution?
Delusion?
No, solution.
Oh, no, I'm afraid I don't, because I'm not a trained ambassador or peacemaker.
Now, what would Underdog do to prevent the tragedy of 9/11 if he could go back in time?
He wouldn't be able to go back in time and stop it because, the planes involved took off from several areas more or less simultaneously to head for their objectives. And um, the two planes that struck the World Trade Center were in rather close succession. But there is something I imagine Underdog doing right after the tragedy.
Which is?
In the days and weeks that followed, when the site of the World Trade Center and what was left of the Pentagon struggled to rescue live or dead bodies from the wreckage, Underdog commuted between Washington and New York many times to do his share of the salvaging.
Oh, okay. So how come that didn't make the news? How come that didn't make the news? I didn't know Underdog did that.
Come on, you know Underdog's fictional.
I'm kidding. Okay. So maybe Supergirl could have stopped it?
No, not Supergirl either. Not any established superhero, even some that were in groups of two or more, because they always stuck together. They never ventured out independently from one another. They always stuck together.
I see. Well, that's unfortunate. So you said that you wanted to bring up 2 points tonight?
I just brought up one of them, the fact that originally I thought it was an inside job because of the Oklahoma City bombing earlier. The second point is that because it happened on a school day, even the youngest children in the lowest grades found out about it. Now, that's the same thing that happened in 1963 when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. That took place on a school day, too.
And you were in school at that time?
Yes.
So which grade were you in?
6.
Okay. So how do you remember that event?
It was announced over the PA.
And how did kids react?
Well, the 6th graders were rather quiet about it, but the teacher went on and on to say, we've lost a great leader, and he cited the other presidents who had been assassinated before Kennedy, but he made a mistake with one of them. He said Grover Cleveland had been assassinated. That was wrong. They were Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, and then Kennedy.
Right. So did you correct them or no?
No, I didn't. I was afraid to.
Because you would be punished if you did, or? Because he was speaking. Oh, I see. So you just didn't want to interrupt. That would be rude.
No, I was afraid that if I interrupted him, he might punish me.
Uh-huh.
Even though he had made a mistake.
I see. No, he probably would have appreciated it, I would imagine, if you correct it. But maybe not.
I don't. No. Sometimes my 6th grade teacher had a very short temper.
That's probably not a good quality for a teacher, I guess.
Well, see, since the Kennedy assassination and 9/11 both took place on school days, the youngest children in the lowest grades in both cases found out about it. In the case of Kennedy's assassination, the whole student body at my school had to attend a memorial assembly the day after his funeral. also in 2002, when it was getting near time for the first anniversary, I read in the papers and I saw children in their yards being made to remember it, and the children I saw being reminded were very young. So young children were made to remember the first anniversary of 9/11, even though the terrorism was not mentioned.
See, but do you think that's important that people remember these events?
Well, because there was such a great loss of life, any incidents in which a great many lives are lost are immortalized.
Well, you think it's important only to immortalize when the numbers are high? What happens when only a few people? Like the first time they tried to bomb the World Trade Center that was 90. You remember it was in 93 and 97? 93, when only few people, because they weren't successful, and fortunately for that time, and only few people died, but still, that's a loss of life.
But it's still not as great a loss of life as, say, an incident of the loss of more than 1,500 lives over a century ago, the sinking of the Titanic.
Right. So we give more importance when the numbers are higher.
Yes.
Now, what do you remember? You were at home, you said, when 9/11 happened. Did you have conversations with your neighbors or your friends or parents? Your parents were still alive back then.
Well, yes, they were, but I didn't talk with them about it. Let's see. Yeah. I remember I had to go to the drugstore to pick up a prescription. I spoke briefly with the clerk about that, but what I did most of the afternoon was to look up at joining Roman Catholic churches in the yellow pages. I called a number of them saying, on the next Sunday, the priest might mention all those dead people in the prayers of the faithful, or somehow or ever make mention of 9/11 during the course of the masses that would take place the following Sunday.
And have you memorialized this day every single year since?
Well, I put a flag out in my yard.
How do you feel about New York City Mayor de Blasio, who didn't want to do anything about it? He pretty much wanted to cancel the whole memorial event, and he got. How do you feel about that?
Well, what do you mean? Are you saying that the masses should put it out of their minds, let it become obsolete, forgotten?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm actually feeling completely opposite. I'm saying the mayor of New York City, de Blasio, canceled those memorial lights that will be shining every year, those towers, and the reading of the names that happens every year at the site. He wanted to cancel. He'd cancel all that stuff, so he got a lot of negative comments because of that. So I just wonder, what do you think about that?
Well, I can understand why he wouldn't want to have it this year, because it would create a crowd situation, which is one of the worst things you can have during this pandemic at present.
Well, you could do it without crowds. He didn't mind crowds for the protest. He actually supported that.
Crowds where?
When people are protesting and rioting in New York City, he didn't mind that at all. So I would think it's a bit hypocritical. And anti-patriotic, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not a very popular mayor. I don't think anyone likes him.
Well, is this year an election year in New York City?
No, I think he's got another year to go. And I think people in New York City can't wait for him to get out. At least majority of people that I know in New York City. I mean, everyone on each or both sides of political spectrum hate him for the most part. I'm sure somebody must like him. But so, what else do you want to talk about as far as 9/11 is concerned?
When I was watching the coverage of 9/11 and I saw the Twin Towers collapse, it struck me oddly that buildings made of steel and concrete could simply collapse like a house of cards.
So you thought that was suspicious?
What?
Did you think that was suspicious?
No, I thought it was strange.
What did you expect? Like what was so unusual about them falling like that?
Like I said, the raw materials used to build skyscrapers nowadays.
So did you expect them to kind of fall sideways, or?
I didn't expect them to fall at all, and then when they did, and they didn't, and the whole building didn't fall at once, but rather, just gradually from the top down. That's something that struck me out, that the different floors would collapse in succession like that instead of probably just being blown all to pieces at once, like the federal building in Oklahoma City.
So did you look into the reasons why later, or?
No.
No, you never checked it out. Did you read or look into any of the conspiracy theories about why they collapsed in a certain way and people disagree and agree with certain things?
No.
Oh, no, okay.
Well, I think if I were much younger, my parents would have, especially my father, would have pestered me to do that. But then after going to all that trouble, I wasn't any more popular, or I wasn't any better off for having gone to all that trouble.
To learn things? What are you referring to?
My father pestered me into doing many things when I was a child and a teen, because he said, "Oh, everybody has to know that." If it wasn't he, then it was people at school, and then, like I said, after going to all the trouble, the people who had been pressured, they received no awards or prizes for going to all that trouble. They were not. They just weren't any better off. They were not treated any better by the people who put the demands on them.
Okay, but maybe a missing part of the story here. Demands to do what?
Demands to, well, in my case, go for reality only. Don't fantasize. That's a mortal sin.
Okay, so any kind of fantasy and imagination that didn't concern with reality was forbidden?
By my father, yes. And yet my parents had deceived me when I was little into thinking that Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and all those other characters, which were just fantasies, were real. I told you about double standards and inconsistency and dishonesty.
Yes, I'm a little lost in what connection do you have between that and 9/11?
Since I was a person in my own right and living on my own, I was not pressured by other people to make an effort to study conspiracies or theories or things like that, because I've been made to do that as a minor without being any better off for it.
I see. So you just accepted it for what it was, and that was it.
Yeah.
Okay. So was that? Do you want to add anything else, or was that the only thing?
Well, if Osama bin Laden was the mastermind behind it, it's now fortunate that he's dead.
Yes. Well, he's been dead for a while now.
Yeah.
So any other comments or memories or?
I didn't have any family members or close relatives or friends who got killed that day. No.
Okay. Well, my brother-in-law was a fireman, and he was at the site doing, I guess you can't call it a rescue. I guess you clean it a search and recovery for many days after the 9/11. So anything else you want to add to this, or should we wrap it up with the song? I know you wanted to sing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In the weeks that followed, a great many Americans sang a song called "God Bless America," and they sang it with all their strength, whereas they would clam up when it came to the Star Spangled Banner.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is?
Well, sometimes there would be a lead voice to lead everybody, but everybody figured they weren't worthy, and they just fell silent. In time, the Star Spangled Banner was wrongfully monopolized by a select musical minority when Francis Scott Key wrote it for all the American people.
But you don't feel that song is much harder to sing?
I have, with my experience in music, I've heard Christmas carols that are just as hard to sing or even harder, and yet people join in those with all their strength. They have no qualms.
Well, maybe they're afraid to mess up the national anthem. I mean, I certainly couldn't do it justice. You can, because you have a good voice, but I couldn't do it.
It's usually sung in a rather high key, but sometimes when someone is told to either solo it or lead everybody, he or she will deliberately sing it in a lower key.
Right, so they can compensate.
Yeah.
So you feel that God Bless America is much more accessible to most people?
I don't understand.
Well, many more people can sing it, and they don't mind singing it at the events, but the national anthem kind of scares people.
Well, I never really got that well acquainted with God Bless America until after 9/11, because it wasn't sung incessantly before 9/11. It was after. Or, well, think about what I said about Christmas carols. In the time before Christmas, usually from right after Thanksgiving through Christmas Day, you hear trained choirs or recordings or church choirs or sometimes just casual masses singing carol after carol after carol after carol incessantly. But once Christmas Day is passed, then they relax.
Yeah, well, it's a seasonal kind of singing, I guess, right? You start usually after Thanksgiving, and then after Christmas you wrap it up. So you
don't sing the carols that much once Christmas Day is behind you.
Right, correct.
When in reality the Christmas season lasts till and including January 6th, the Epiphany.
Right, if you want to go by that, sure, you could continue. Now, do you want to tell us anything about the song "God Bless America," or you just want to sing it?
Well, one thing I remember about it is that it was popularized by a singer named Pearl Bailey. Now, I'm pretty positive that when she sang it, the masses joined in.
And do you know who she was, or didn't know anything about her?
No, she dates quite some time back.
Okay, so do you want to just go ahead and sing that?
If anyone listening is familiar with those song lyrics, they should sing it with me, because I think that too was written for the masses and not an exclusive musical minority.
Right, so that's good. It's an invitation to anyone listening to join and sing along. I'm going to be quiet because I don't want to ruin your singing, but anyone in the audience.
You don't think, because you don't think you have that good a singing voice, or maybe your voice type is different than mine?
I think I don't have a good singing voice. I'll probably ruin the song for you.
Okay. All right, everybody get ready? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
All right, bravo, Suzanne. That was excellent.
I don't suppose you could hear any other people singing with me, could you?
Well, not at the moment, but if they join in, as the podcast episode is playing, and they're in my neighborhood. Maybe maybe I can hear them. All right, so should we wrap it up then with that beautiful rendition of a song?
Thank you for inviting me to speak on this occasion.
No, anytime, Suzanne. It's always a pleasure, and you're getting a lot of fans out there who are listening and saying hello. So thank you very much, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right. Bye, Suzanne. Take care.
Bye bye.